Recording is on.
Okay, hey, welcome everyone, anyone who's watching this afterwards and anyone who's here. This is Bitcoin Core App Design Call number 38, where we just once a week get together and discuss what's currently going on in the project. I went through the list of just conversations over the last week, and I also put together this new roadmap, trying to figure out what's actually all in the air right now, stuff that we need to figure out. But first of all, we have a new person, Michael, welcome. And you and I, we chatted in Slack about design system. We had a bunch of back and forth that started with, I think, Sahil posting about component properties in Figma and all of this stuff, and we got all into it. And since that's something we're figuring out, or trying to figure out in Figma with this project right now, Michael.
Right, exactly. That was kind of the trigger.
Yeah. So yeah, that's also one of the topics here. But maybe we'll start with this real quick. So and then we can update our list of conversation topics. So this roadmap here, which is also now linked from bitcoincore.app, it's a project board, and hopefully we can use this from now on to track everything that's in the air that we're working on from a design perspective, not a code perspective, because so far it's just kind of been floating around a little bit, and I myself also had a hard time just figuring out what's actually there to do. Hopefully that will help us break it down, track it a little bit, and then ship things off, get them done. So is that everybody cool with this new introduction?
Yeah, this is great. Keep this organized there. And again, it's with the principle of keeping the sort of design related information in your channels. So I think it's appropriate to have it here instead of, say, within the development repo. And so, yeah, this looks great.
Okay, cool. And then ideally every call we can just, every design call at least, we can start by looking at this. And if something's not in there, we need to put it in there. And we can just kind of catch up with what's going on.
Yeah, awesome.
I don't think this is complete right now, and some stuff is old, like review and requests for design from, what is it?
From
which date format is that? Is that June or is that January?
Yeah, June.
Okay.
June 1st.
Okay.
American.
It also could be possible the discussion around the block clock. I remember that one was still
correct.
That one you might want to add. I'm not sure if it's still a bit in the air, but it kind of still feels that way, I think.
Right. Habasta wanted to sort of discuss that. And I guess, did we ever happen to send, Christoph, you put together this sort of little video, right?
Yeah.
And did we ever send that to anyone? I know I didn't, and I should send it to people.
No, I shared it and there was some feedback, but I feel like overall it was a little bit hard to get feedback because people were missing the context a little bit. They were not totally familiar with, I think it's context I tried to give, but I'm not sure if that's something you can really decide without kind of getting into it a bit further.
Right, yeah.
Which solutions, but it's a tricky one. But maybe we should start with the one that's easier to implement. If no one feels like this is a huge deal breaker either way, maybe we should just kind of implement our first version, annotate our other ideas that we have, and then maybe revisit it later.
Yeah. And I guess while we're on some sort of like older things here, I think an exciting update is we don't have to neglect mobile so much anymore, because actually ProMag is going to be coming back.
Yes.
And yeah, so, he took some time off. He felt burnout. And ProMag, if you're listening to this later, I'm shouting you out, but yeah, he's coming back and he's going to work on it full time.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. One of the calls last week, we had Johnny joined, and he said that he has Android experience and QML experience.
Yes.
So
okay.
If you want to charm someone, maybe he's watching or is in the Slack, that's somebody you could talk to.
Yeah, he did reach out to me on Twitter, and I told him about these calls and everything. And I hope he continues to join. Yeah, I wasn't on that last call, but yeah, I'll reach out to him again.
Yep, excellent. And then otherwise, I just grabbed a few things here and put them here in my background this way there for stuff we could talk about, but we can prioritize as we see fit. There's more than we can potentially possibly cover here. Since Michael's here, maybe the interactive states should be something to discuss. Project board, we already talked about, so I'll just put a plus there real quick. We definitely want to talk about Shashwat's progress. So one of those. But what else do we want to? Yeah, Gerald, do you have an update on the proxy screen design?
Yeah, I'm behind on sort of this work, being at the conference, but I'm getting back into it today. Yeah, so I guess no real update for me on that until I work on it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I had suggested 2 different variations. It would be cool from the other designers to give feedback and then say yay or nay, or just keep iterating or suggest something else. But we should form some type of consensus for the.
Yeah, so these the different designs aren't too radically different. So it's not difficult for me to implement them, and then you guys can actually test it while the application is running, and then you can have that, and we can discuss that further.
Okay. Yeah, it's also proxy settings screen. It's not the most crucial part of the user experience.
No,
it isn't. We want people to understand this and set it up correctly. But yeah.
I think that's an important part because, again, with the onboarding, it's getting across the correct information. And then, if you look at the current proxy settings, I don't think it's very informative. And so I guess that's like the big issue here. Just make sure that they understand what they're doing with that.
Yeah, Michael, for comparison, this is the old GUI here, specifically this part.
Right.
Yeah, this part here. And that's what we're just putting a separate screen for it and trying to clean it up a little bit. For example, there are these little checkboxes, right? You expect that you can check them, but they're not checkable. They're actually indicators whether something is in use or not right now. So there's a little bit of UI element abuse going on in here. And that was just one of the things that we're trying to clean up and make more obvious. And actually, one of the things that there are still 1 or 2 questions, but once you get to it, we can cover those. Maybe, or unless you want to talk about it right now.
Yeah, I guess until I work on it, after I get it done, then maybe we can have a more productive conversation on that.
Okay, cool. All right, got this one covered here. What should we cover next? Oh, something from the conversation last week, Gerald. I think this is something that you should maybe know about. Storage location settings. So Shashwat had some good points about how we have duplicate location settings.
Yes, location settings, yes.
And there was also some confusion around the file picker. And I downloaded the latest build of the app. And like when I say custom location, I couldn't pick anything. So
yeah, because so first, before we sort of open any dialogue or figure out what we're going to do, we need real options handling. And so I think that's a design we'll need, right? Sort of when you click custom directory, what happens next, right? Now, on the duplicate locations, I think a lot of the settings we have, there's duplicates because you have the happy path. And when you click these buttons, what they will do, like underlying, is they'll set certain options. And then in detailed settings, it's where you see them sort of in the table format, and then you can change things there if you want to. But I think with the duplicate location, a lot of the settings we have are duplicated.
I think duplicate would be a kind of misleading word. More correct word would be like more elaborative versions of the setting, not the exact setting repeated again. But in the case of storage location, the exact setting is being repeated again in 2 different pages.
Yeah, in this particular case, it was a bit weird because the detailed settings really didn't add very much that you couldn't already set up with the happy path settings.
Can you scroll down to PR there? Yeah, there. So storage location, default, custom, and then and so custom you'd choose. And then if you go to detailed settings, then you have your data location, which for now we do have one data location, and so we're going to keep the block data and this other data that doesn't take up much space within the same directory. But one thing we'll want to do as we expand the options handling functionality is to be able to specify blocks directory, and that's where 500 gigabytes is stored, and then data directory, which are things like your index and maybe things like wallet, and that can be stored somewhere else. So I mean, if we don't want it, I can just remove the data location from detailed settings.
Yeah, I mean, Shashwat also had the point that even with this first version, we may only have one or two settings, but more might be added later to just keep it in anyways.
So Harold, just to confirm, like the storage locations custom directory one, the setting, the particular location that is being selected there, and the location in the data location stored in the detail setting one, are they talking about the same data or are they talking about different one?
Wait, sorry, what was the question again?
So basically the location that you select in the storage location page and the detail setting that you select in the storage setting page, the data location one. So are they talking about the same data?
Yeah, the same data location. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then there is a redundancy here, I think. Then there is a redundancy.
Yeah, I mean,
because see, in the last call we discussed, like the storage location page talks about where to keep the data, and storage setting, storage and detail setting page talk about how much to keep of that data. So the so the block location might make sense in the storage detail setting page, but the data location would still be a redundancy in that case also.
Yeah, that's valid. So like, for example, just to point out, like we do have a redundancy in a lot of things. So for example, if you look at storage, it's reduced storage, which would be prune and then default. And then you go to detailed settings and then you can change your storage limit again, or, enable or disable store recent blocks only. And so like with the detailed settings, we have a lot of redundancy, but I think it's valid that with storage, which is kind of how much to store, we have data location for now instead of the storage location screen. But yeah, I mean, interesting. Yeah, I wonder.
Yeah. And to go back to the point we made last time also was that this PR is just about cleaning up the settings, hooking them up, and then we'll have follow-up PRs where we can like, okay, this setting really should be over here, or this should be over there.
Yes.
Yeah. And Michael, for a little bit of context here. So we had, let me pull up this. We're just getting this onboarding flow ready for the first version of the application. And we tried to do this happy path approach where by default, a user gets presented some very simple options that are, everybody understands this and can kind of get it. And there's a good recommendation. But then there are these detailed settings for someone who wants more control. And then they get basically a list of these options where, as maybe as an advanced user, you'll kind of understand most of them. And if a hobbyist or so, you'll understand all of them. But you don't have to touch any of this stuff. And so now, because a lot of these, like Gerald just said, we don't have, like right now, eventually we might have 2 folders for different types of data. Right now we just have 1. So this is just kind of, the implementation of this is just kind of rolling out. And we're just negotiating a little bit what should go where exactly now that we're dealing with the actual real implementation. But I think overall our basic system of handling these, the happy path and the details, I think that works pretty well.
Nice.
And once this application becomes goes mobile, right now it starts on desktop only, but it has mobile support, and with ProMag helping out to make that happen, there will be more complexity because the requirements for mobile devices are just different. less storage, less bandwidth. You might want to do things Wi-Fi only. On a desktop, it doesn't really matter. So those complexity to be figured out.
Yeah. But just to sort of circle back, one thing here, I guess, that we did gloss over before is, so yeah, like when you're choosing the data directory, what happens? We have two options. We can initiate a system dialog, at least for desktop, and that opens a a different looking screen depending on the operating system, and it'll be a window that the operating system defaults to, where you choose a directory, or we create our own. I would sort of fall on the side of having our own sort of custom screen within the GUI to choose it.
Yeah, we talked about last time. Do we need some type of indicator that this is a file picker? It's kind of weird if you select this thing and then the file picker shows up. It's not really clear that it is one, and you can't really tell what it is. So yeah.
It's a directory picker.
Or directory picker.
Yeah. So yeah, a directory really is a file, but I guess that gets a little technical on the operating system side.
Like file / something / something. We have to style that, figure that out.
That detailed settings button, I was just wondering, are those more, is that second screen state next to it that says storage settings?
Yep. It slides up from the bottom.
So this is if you want to kind of customize the storage.
Yep. You're not happy with the 2-3 options that we present to you. You want to go deeper, and this is your place.
Is it like standard now in all the other screen states that there's these detailed settings, or is it an option to also call it like custom settings?
I just wanted to say it's because you're actually, what you're doing is you're overriding the defaults.
Yeah.
Right. So something like custom or advanced settings seems kind of more consistent with what
custom
I'm usually used to. So that was one question that I had as well.
I guess just to point out there, and I guess we don't have it on these visual screens here. If you were to go into detail, like if you were to change something with detailed settings, and then you click detailed settings, you make your changes, and you're going to come back to this sort of the main screen here where the 2-3 options are, and there will be a new sort of box there that says like custom settings, like enabled, like you're running under custom settings. So there is that, but I guess it's valid on sort of the name with that little text button.
That was the idea that I was kind of leaning towards, exactly what Christoph is doing right now.
Yeah.
And then the middle screen state would be called custom settings, just the language used at the top, custom settings.
Yeah, that's an interaction actually I still have to implement. So if you were to change something within a subpage, and then we come back to the main page, then we have this custom settings little box there.
Sorry, that was me just...
I like that.
Just with regards to what Christoph just, those three screen states that Christoph just had, when it is selected and it is active, so if they've clicked on reduce storage, and they'd say, oh, I want to just go back and check which storage option I've chosen, how do they know which one is activated at that moment?
One with the orange highlight.
Yeah, so the border would be orange.
Okay.
Also, Christoph, I have first of all one question. Like, do we as a kind of people who understand Bitcoin want people to run a full node with all the blockchain installed, or are we okay if most of the network is working with full node?
Yeah, I mean, really, that's a question on the P2P network and the health of the P2P network. I think sort of a 128-to-1 ratio of prune nodes to full archival nodes works amazingly.
Okay.
And so, yeah, you can have 128 times more prune nodes than full archival nodes, and everything's fine.
Okay, so I was thinking, can we go about with a storage onboarding happy path in which the default option is absent? Only the reduce storage and the custom setting option are present. Like
Okay.
it just reduces the complexity.
So so there are multiple things. There's the health of the network, of what's ideal for the network. Then there is the reality of the device that it's being run on. Is it mobile? Is it desktop? How much storage do you have available? And then there are the wishes of the user. And ideally, we can't know the wishes of the user, but we can come up with logic for the other two parts of this. And yeah, so but especially once mobile comes into play, there are probably a lot of devices where pruning is simply not it simply has to be done.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's why is providing a default option in which the complete blockchain is going to be downloaded and kept in the storage. Can we go about with removing this option from the happy path?
It depends who's happy path. I think in the end, we're going to have to do like, okay, is this on a mobile device? How much storage is available? If so, show these options. If not, show those options, right? And then it might be different.
No, it would just increase the complexity. No?
So I think for our first version 1, we're just gonna have 2 options. It'll be pretty simple. But then ideally, as we learn, as this becomes more complex and rolls out and more operating systems and devices, then we have this built-in smart logic.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, that's a super loaded question. Yeah, and so there's so many factors to think about.
That's why it's gonna be later in the journey.
And we're gonna have to document these design decisions pretty well too, so that these conversations.
And it's like, of course, you'd want people to choose to be an archival node, but a prune node still validates all consensus rules, and so they are still helping secure the network. It's just that they can't help a new node onboard from the very beginning.
Right, got it. By the way, I was talking about this particular point because the storage location page has 2 options, right? The default directory and the custom directory. So what if we can maintain a similar kind of aesthetics for all the detail setting pages? Like only 2 options: recommended option or your own choice.
I mean, it's I think forcing a certain number of options, no matter what the context is
kind of limiting. Yes, I can.
I would just figure out what the content is that you're dealing with, what the options are, and then come up with the appropriate amount of
number of options.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so that's going to be an ongoing thing, I think. Mo, are you keeping notes on this?
A sort of a next step here.
I have made some notes here. Storage location settings. There are duplicates in a lot of the settings.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think a next step here is, so the directory picker. What will that look like? Yeah.
So, and I think you just need to merge, wrap up this PR and merge it, and then we can create sub PRs for whatever changes we need to make. It's not a huge deal.
Cheryl, a question for you. Do you guys know, like off the top of your head, where the duplicates actually exist? Could you list them just off the cuff like that?
Well, the thing is that every page where you have a happy path and then detailed settings, there are duplicates, because when you go into the detailed settings, it's just a duplicate of the options being set in the happy path. And so every single screen where you have that, there's duplicates.
It's like happy paths. You get bundled configurations, like pre-configurations, pre-made configurations.
Like there does duplicate exist, but the particular bundle is not gonna be repeated again.
Yeah, and so
still the storage location one is redundant. It's the only one I can think of.
Okay. What else? we covered all the storage, custom settings stuff. This this is a small thing. Gerald, you still need disabled settings styles, right?
Yeah.
And this was specifically for list items like.
So, for example, if you look at
this
storage
thing.
settings, store recent blocks only, if that's not enabled, then storage limit would be completely disabled.
So we have something like that. And here, that's off. Then this would be something like that.
Yeah. And so, I mean, yeah, if we want that, then that's simple enough to implement.
And so question here, should it be still editable? Because, I mean...
No, it shouldn't, because you're not operating under prune. And so we shouldn't allow them to edit the number, as I think about it, right?
Yes.
Until
Yes,
yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's like, why not let them edit it? I mean, it's not
I guess
if it's clear that this option's not enabled, you might as well, put in your numbers and then enable it. I mean, who cares?
But I think, isn't it a standard practice that we don't allow editing of on kind of non-editable option, like non-functioning options? Sorry.
I mean, it can be helpful for the user. As I think it's fine as long as turning it on doesn't instantly turn this mechanism on with the wrong number because you haven't had a chance to change it yet.
Okay.
It's like let's say, and this is not how it works, but store recent blocks only. It's like it instantly starts deleting stuff up to 75 gigs. But I was like, no, I want a 200 gigs. It's already deleted everything.
Okay.
I mean,
so first, let me think if it can be actual problem. Can it be? I think it can be.
I remember something from the GUI design that said that you have this amount of storage available on your computer, and then they show the storage options underneath.
Yeah.
Because, like, for example, my mobile phone doesn't have a lot of storage space. So if I have a lot of photos, my phone starts going super slow. Is that maybe also an idea for the phone? Can they also pick up how much of storage space you have on your mobile phone?
We can pick up how much storage is available within like the greater drive that the directory you've chosen is on.
Yeah.
And so in that way, we can determine if the directory you've chosen will be able to fit the entire blockchain history, or you'll have to prune it. And so, yeah, we can let them know you have 556 gigabytes available. Yeah.
That was a really nice one from the GUI, I remember. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, and so just to take iterative steps, like we'll have the design for that right now, but I'd like to kind of gloss over that for now until like I can pick that up later.
So I think just put in a disabled state. It's not a big deal. And this goes into the whole discussion around the design system, for which we have some stuff here. But if you've watched the video, there's a lot more stuff here to do. But if we just want to deal with the disabled state, I think a typical thing is we just pick a color from our neutral colors system here, like from one of these, and we dedicate that as the disabled color. And that should work pretty broadly. And the big thing really is it should, like with input fields, you have a placeholder text color when you haven't typed anything in. And there should be a noticeable difference between disabled and placeholder, but it should not be so light or dark that you can't even see anything. Like this one here, you can barely see it. So I think maybe our neutral 4 or neutral 4 might be a good choice here. If we just, like, if something's disabled, you just make it that color.
You could also think about giving it a relatively dark background so that it visually looks different.
Yeah, I mean, we're already working on black, so that's a difficult one.
Yeah, no, I was working on also on dark mode and it's much tougher than in light mode, right? It's from a design perspective. For instance, shadows that don't really work, and these kinds of things. So, yeah, but I think the approach is probably the best for now.
I was thinking about a grayish background for not working settings, but that would just look too messy. It would just.
Yeah, so I think this is fine. It's, and people are going to realize it too. They'll tap in and they just can't do anything with it. I think it's fine.
Christoph,
This is also neutral 3. Let's make that neutral 4.
I like the color on the focus. I like the purple.
So this is something that Jakob came up with, and I also saw Gene use it. So we have this purple already in our color system, and I think it works pretty well. I've previously used this 50% orange, but I mean, why not use the purple? I mean,
yeah.
Christoph, I was just wondering with the hover and with the active.
Yep.
In terms of hierarchy, like for me, maybe it's my screen. There's just the difference in the color. It's just so subtle.
Okay, here's a tip. You cannot figure out what these colors should be by comparing them next to each other, because when you interact with them, the way it slightly changes to the way you react, the way it appears in the end when it's interactive is so different. Like it might not look different enough, but then you actually interact with it and you're like, oh yeah, that's different enough, right? And it also really depends on text, which is just lines basically, very thin. It blends differently with a filled color. So you might be in a situation later where you want, like, if the color fill change more subtle than the text color change, because it just, our eyes just perceive it differently, and filled color is always more prominent than lines. So that is the stuff where it's like, I think you can get close by mocking them up like this, but you really have to do a quick prototype and just hover over it 100 times and see if it feels right.
It's because you're to kind of expand on that, because you're actually interacting with the things, or you're already focusing on. So that means you already you will notice even relatively small or subtle differences. But it's a very fine line, especially when you have, like in this button here on the left, the third, I think it's the active state. The white on this light orange can be the label color. The white one, if the font is too thin, then it kind of blends with the background and you don't see it anymore. So it's a lot of tweaking these things.
And the active one, if you just press it, you're not going to press and hold it and then read the text, right? You're just going to see it like a quick flicker. Right? So sometimes it's also okay. You just have to try it out.
Exactly, and your pointer will be on the label most of the time of the mouse, right? If you do it on that, so it's a lot of. You can also work with size, right? You could kind of make the button a bit like 5 pixels smaller or 6, and you will notice the difference.
Yeah. Did you do lots of skeuomorphic design?
No.
I remember when I started, the idea was that the button should you would think of a real physical button here, where it's like there's a slightly curved surface and light is reflected, and then when you touch it, like it dips in. So you try to imitate like how the light changes when the surface becomes, from convex to whatever the other thing is, right? Concave, right? And you try to imagine like the lighting effects on it when you touch it, and that was a weird thing. But yeah, with flat design, it's just not the same anymore.
I think so. Sort of the questions I have is, well, one, we'd kind of want to be able to test out these states, right? And so, do we have any sort of update on the continue button? I think Jacob he was proposing having some sort of hover state on that. And so do we want to apply this design system to any elements within the GUI right now?
So that would be something for tomorrow for our design jam session, where we just all hop in Figma together and try to resolve these types of things. It requires some discussion and some testing, I think, because what could work for buttons here. So ideally, we introduce maybe 3 new colors or something, and those just work pretty much for everything that we need, whether it's text or flat filled shapes or whatnot. But we have to figure out, like I said in the video, this is like an outline with text in it. Is that the same as an input field? Should those get the same treatments? Then if, does it still, like if we have this active state here with this background color, does that still look good when we apply to an input field, or is it weird? So there's just a bunch of stuff we have to go through and come up with a system. But ideally, we just have like 3, 4 new colors that we introduce, and then we have, like I did here, where it's like, okay, filled state, text becomes this color, hover state, border becomes this color. And then we just have these very simple rules that can then be encoded. But we just have to check, here I mocked up, but it could be like for tabs, and here these option buttons, and these kind of list item thingies. So we just have to put our heads together and just go through it and decide.
Okay, awesome. I think it's at 9 UTC, right? Tomorrow?
I believe so.
I'll try to hop on just because I'm interested in hearing, but I might not speak because I'll be working, but I'll try to hop on and just listen to what you guys are discussing.
Awesome, yeah, and like we just talked about, maybe one of the best things is if we just set up a real quick HTML prototype where we can just click around and just feel it out.
Literally just thinking that. I was thinking of creating, just because we have the onboarding flow and we have the create wallet, maybe we can just create a clickable prototype in Figma and take a couple of people through that and just see what they have to say about it. I think that would be really interesting. It's quite early stages, but I think that's at least about 16, maybe 18 different screen states. Different screens.
Yeah, they have on click, on drag, while hovering, while pressing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, cool. I'll write that down.
Christoph, before we move from this topic, I want to just add a point. Like when I saw the purple for the focus tab, I thought it was kind of out of place. But now as I'm looking through it more and more, it's growing on me. But still, I want to put a point. Like normally the focus border are usually colored in blue and stuff, like how you're seeing on your Figma web, right? Whenever you select there's a blue border. So what if we can also try experiment with a bluish border for the focus tab, like the blue that is present in the last line on this page. This is not a valid address support format. So like that kind of blue for the focus border.
I guess it's about aesthetics, and so we can experiment, but purple is in the design system. Yeah, but yeah, we can experiment.
I mean, blue is also in the design system, right? Blue is also there.
It's also there, yeah. I think you can look at different browsers. Safari, I think blue is kind of common, but I think there are subtle differences between different browsers. I think Safari has like a blue 50% opaque or something.
I mean, it depends on the system settings. On Mac, you can override the interaction colors on the system level, and then all the buttons or kind of the drop downs. All of these elements are orange, purple, green. So you can override these things anyway.
Do you know what it is on different browsers, what the defaults are, browsers, operating systems, or so? If there's a huge difference, or if they all kind of converge to?
I think blue is kind of the standard.
Yes. I think Christoph, I was adding this particular point because in one of the iterations of your file, I'm not sure which one, but it was corresponding to the focus tab. The purple was seeming quite overwhelming considering the number of tabs that were in the focus. Probably it was down. I'm not sure which one, but like too much purple was kind of feeling overwhelming. That's why I thought that to put this point out. Maybe we can go with a slightly dimmed, slightly less opaque version of probably pink, probably purple, probably blue. But let's see that.
I mean, I think unless you're relying on accessibility stuff, you're never going to use it, right?
Mm-hmm. Which one? Like the focus tab.
Yeah. Or do you tap around a lot? Do you use keyboard interactions a lot?
But still, we work with the mouse, right? So usually select options with the mouse. So maybe the focus tab could be.
But you won't see it. I mean, that's the hover and the pressed state are different. This is when you use a keyboard.
Yeah, this is for tabbing.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
So, and I think in that case, it's it can be okay if it's a little bit stronger.
Right. Yes. Makes sense. Right. Like it would be rare, kind of rare when many tabs are in the focus. So like the overwhelming part would automatically be cancelled out. And to keep the color stronger is quite useful for the accessibility purpose as well. Yes, makes sense.
Yeah, but I hope this is one of all of this stuff is one of the things where I hope we can just pretty quickly just get it done, come up with a good approach to it, and then it's easy to change too. We designers, we can also go into the code and just like say, okay, use neutral 5 instead of neutral 6 or so if we think it's that important to change.
Yeah.
Okay, but actually, by the way, in terms of implementation, do you need all of this stuff at once, or is it okay if we say, okay, here's stuff for buttons, and next week you'll get disabled states, or I don't know.
This is kind of sort of like on the outskirts, right? Like it's great to have it in whenever we can have it in. And so however the development occurs with you guys is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What else? We have about 15 minutes. Oh, Joshua, do you want to talk about the
yes.
show off
I was
progress?
patiently waiting for it for like.
Okay, here you go.
Last 45 minutes. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay. Can you see it?
I see myself.
Okay. So it's gonna be a quick one, so to be ready because it's almost synced. So the change would be like very soon. Second. And
if you just do a new data directory, then
so
it'll start
97, 98, and switch. Oh, good. Yes. See, so like it's showing the last, the black one are the sync blocks timing when they were synced, and 23% is the time that has been completed since the last 12th hour. So the current time, the ratio of current time to the last 12th hour. So I was experimenting with I was doing the final experimentation with replacing this 23% with the number of blocks, the block counter, but the time ran up, so I joined the meet instead of doing the experimentation.
Shashwat, is this doing polling every so often until we get a new block, and then it starts like sort of polling again and counting the time?
No. The yellow bar, the current time is updating each second. So the timer goes on like it's a separate process compared to the init process in which the verification is done. Now the black bar are being recorded whenever the new block is being found. The only problem is, and Harold, I wanted to discuss it with you. Like as soon as I now close this block and restart it, now only the tip blocks time would be found. All the blocks that were in between were not be able to found because their time was not able to be recorded. Since only the tip time is being shown from the node model. Now,
well, if you've restarted again, then technically the amount of time that would have lasted between the last restart and the new restart is unknown. And so really we only could start from the tip.
But what if means is there a way to find block based on their timestamp? Like we can just go. I'm just thinking out loud. I'm saying we have synced the blocks, so we have the information for the sync block as well and their timestamp as well. So can in some way we found blocks that were found after a particular timestamp? Can we record those blocks so that we
Like
can update? Mhm.
like record the time that each block was at according to its block height.
Yes, but the chain has been synced. Say the chain has been synced. Now only we have currently the information about the only the tip. But can in some way we found the timestamp for the previous block that has been synced as well? Because if we do know that particular information, we can just find that, or we can just find all the blocks which were mined since the last 12th hour, and hence we can record them on the block log.
That's really complex because there's a ton of things in play. One, the amount of time that has passed in terms of Unix time is unknown, and your system clock can be off. The nodes giving you blocks, their system time can be a little off, and we're fine with that. And so it becomes really complex. When you restart, it will have to be at whatever tip you're at, just because reconciliation, it's not really something that we'd be able to do in terms of, all right, well, it's only been a minute since you restarted. Okay, we'll restore the state. That doesn't really play because there's a lot of things we don't know that really happened in reality. And so we can't really reconcile.
Okay.
I do have a question. So when you restart it, it starts at a quarter past, kind of. Why does it start sort of a quarter past?
No, it's not a
Like the
a quarter past. It's the yellow one is the amount of time that is amount of the current time that has been passed since the last 12th hour. So it's not adjusted to the time zones, and hence it is showing the GMT time. So according to that, it's probably like two and a half, 2:30 there in England. So that's how the quarter bar is happening.
Wait, it's the amount of time that has passed since what?
Since the last 12th hour,
It's like a normal
like
clock.
the 12 o'clock or the 24 o'clock. So like the 12th hour.
Wait, so why is it starting at a quarter past? Sorry, I didn't understand.
No, it's not a quarter pass. It's just recording the current time and finding how much the current time is ahead of the last time it has
Like
been 12
your
o'clock.
local time?
No, the GMT one. Not adjusted to the local time. I have to do that thing as well. That adjustments.
And
So
so
like
the last block was that much time before?
yes, the last black segment you can see. It was the last time the tip was found, and the first one it's kind of a bug. Means I have to fix it. So like
Oh, okay.
the black one at 0 is not the real one.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yes, I don't. One second, one more thing. So, like you said, that reconciliation is not possible, but still, using the RPC, if we know a hash of a block, or say we know, we can find a block's detail based on their index, right? Like,
We don't interface with the RPC.
uh,
When we don't want to interface with the RPC, that's a lot of latency in the application.
so means
We
can
interface
in some way-
directly with the instances of the object. So the node, the wallet interface. That's what we interface with.
Okay, so like, but how the RPC is using the back end of the Bitcoin? Can we use? Can we kind of bring that particular feature that we want, the tracking the timestamp for the block mined in after the 12 o'clock, last 12 o'clock? Can we bring that to our backend, the node model, or would that be a too complex task for now?
No, yeah, we could do that. What I'm saying is, in perfect cases, right, you could do this, right? But we're dealing with this immensely distributed machine across all different types of the world, and I know that you're going to deal with hundreds of cases where like it wouldn't work because there's all these time differences, and within the node software we allow, your system clock can be off, other node system clocks can be off, and we allow, I think, like 2 hours of a time difference between the other node's clock and our clock, and reconciling this isn't easy to do, and then to make it show up nicely on this block clock, You really shouldn't be restarting your node so often, depending on your use case. And so, if you're not restarting, okay, everything works nice. If you restart, we really can only start at the tip.
Yes, yes. So that's why, Christoph, I want to add, like, you have seen the limitation of this particular approach with keeping track of the last all the blocks that will be mined after the last 12 o'clock. So, so should we kind of look into the just tracking the single block only, or should we kind of it's okay if this particular limitation remains is this particular approach?
Well,
Do I understand correctly that the previous blocks simply cannot be shown? They're not available?
Yes, yes.
I mean,
They
that
can be
breaks
shown
the whole
because
visual concept, basically.
yes.
no. It's only broken in the case of when your node had to restart. And if your node restarts, it's okay to start off at a new sort of clock time. If your node isn't restarting, then there's no issue whatsoever.
But let's say if I shut down this thing, node shuts down, 3 days later, I boot it up, it syncs again, the node catches up with all the blocks. Shouldn't it be able to just show me the last blocks or the last like X hours since noon or midnight?
So once we've synced,
yeah.
And so after we've synced, you still want a sort of, you want that history to be shown, like within the new state.
Isn't it the idea that this clock shows the last X to 12 hours of history? I mean, that was one of the concepts. There are two concepts. The simplified one that I think Hebasto proposed was we just show time since last block, basically. The other one, the design that's also in the design docs and whatnot, that is either till 12 or midnight, whatever, we show you indexes of all the blocks that when they happened.
Okay, yeah. So, okay, I wasn't aware that that's kind of like what the next screen state would be. And so, yeah, if we do want that, then yes, we can do that, having the block history. I thought that once we've synced, it starts a sort of a new time period, and then it's keeping track of every block after that and how long it's been the tip for. Yeah, so if we want the last however many hours to be shown after we've synced, then yes, then we can do that.
So would that require some backend changes in the node model?
Yeah, of course it requires changes. Yeah.
Yes, but actually I tried to experiment with them, but I was not able to even point out which particular file or option is responsible for these things.
Your chain man.
Okay, chain man. Okay, let me look further into it.
Yeah. I mean, here's it from the design docs website. That third state, that is you're synced, and latest block is indicated here, or times late block. It's red because it has only one confirmation. Okay, CMO.
See you.
And yeah, that would be then the default state whenever it's synced. It just shows you these little ticks here, indicating the current time and the blocks when they happen.
Okay,
that's not what you thought, which is fine.
So,
I just want to clarify.
I guess I just had a misconception. I thought that so if you see the third screen state, it has those many blocks because we've that amount of time has passed since we've synced, and we've kept a running tally of the new tip and how long it was the tip for. I wasn't aware that, okay, so like we finished syncing, and now the next screen state is it shows these past however many hours and the and those blocks, how long were they the tip for. So it's just like a misconception in my head, but we can do either, of course.
Like Hebasto said, it just requires a lot of caching to keep all those blocks, and that's why he recommended going this simplified route. So either one is fine. We can also start with it, and that's what we had that video about that we shared with other people.
Mm-hmm.
So and we need with me.
We need threading, Shashwat. So like I see this time being printed a lot in the console, and with all the other processes we're going to have, this has to be on its own thread.
Actually, I use the queue timer and connect option. So is threading being done in the background, or I have to do it manually?
If it's what?
I use the queue timer to start this the counter of the the second timer, which is being updated like continuously each second. So using the queue timer automatically do the threading part for me, or I have to do that manually again, like above it.
Yeah, so you want to look at the Qt docs, and with the queue timer, it's what when it's counting, it does start in its own thread, but it has to come back into the main thread and then restart its polling. And
Yes,
so
yes.
the entire sort of thing of keeping track of any time should entirely be in its own thread. Yeah.
Got it. And Christoph, you mentioned that if I say shut the node now and restart it 3 days later, then with the current approach, it would show the last block mine in the last 12 hours. Yes, but say if I by mistake restarted just now and I want to restart the device again just now, then only the tip would be shown. So that's the problem with the current approach.
And so,
For now.
my thought
For
was
now,
that
yes.
unless it does not indicate these block ticks until it's actually synced. Like it will just show downloading, 2 minutes left, and basically use the outline as a progress indicator. Like the second state here in my background.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
And
then once it's done, it's got all the latest blocks. Then it switches over to indicate the.
Yes. So for now, I've set the threshold to 0.99 percent of 99% of the progress. And so I can change. We can change it based on the exact thing we want. But for now, the threshold is 0.99. So yes, you're right. Like until the 0.99 of progress is done, other connecting or downloading screen states would be shown. But then we will switch to the block.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. This might be a thing where we actually start using it. We put it on overnight next to our bedside table and let our node run, and we're like, this is horrible. We need to change it. So,
like the design, or
no, just there might be once you use something and you don't consciously look at it, you stare at it, you think about the code, you think about the pixels. Once you step back from all of that a little bit and you just kind of more casually use it, you have a different relationship with it. You react differently. Just like with these interactive states we talked about. So I hope we don't make any huge change. We don't need any huge changes. If we need them, we'll have to make them. But I assume there might be small stuff about the wording or maybe some slight visual tweaks that will, from our own experience and from feedback. It's inevitable. It always happens something. But we give it our best first shot that we can, and then it's up to users to tell us.
Awesome. Yeah, I think just to kind of put it out there, I'm really excited for this coming month, because I think we're getting at the point where a lot of things are converging and a lot of development is converging, and we're hitting the milestones we're supposed to. And, ProMag is coming back, and Habasto, this whole time he's kind of been working on the CMake stuff, which will be needed if this project is going to live. And then when he's done with that, he's going to be coming back in full force. And so I think September will be a time of a lot of development.
Awesome. Yes. Yeah. And I think with the design, we're also getting a good pace, and then hopefully we can just wrap up a lot of this stuff. The wallet.
I think designers have a large head start compared to the developers. Like we are quite behind now. But as Harold said, we are going to accelerate it in the September. So all the best to you guys. Let's see who reached the finish line.
No, I don't know. The design-wise, we have an insane amount of questions around all kinds of details around multi-sig stuff and wallet creation, and we'll need all together. We'll need to have a lot of discussions to really figure it out.
So the back-end design part is remaining, like the ideation part.
Yeah, we're just kind of poking at different areas, mocking things up, seeing what could happen. And, we might also do a thing where, like I'm talking to Gene about it, where, for multi-sig, we have the current reality and then the ideal state that we maybe want to get to. You just kind of hold your phone next to your computer and say, key synced, nice. But right now it's like, okay, no, install this separate script and enter where your script is. It's like we might have a now state and future state and ideal dream state. So there's a lot of stuff.
But in the ideal dream state, we also need a hardware wallet that would support this kind of magical Bluetooth transfer of the keys.
Yeah, I don't know. I think NFC, Cold Card have NFC already.
So do they have Wi-Fi feature? Means like online, like tap touch kind of feature for key transfer?
I don't know about key transfer. I think they have it. I know Cold Card, the latest version, has some NFC stuff.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's just for signing or whatever it's used for. But that's
it's for signing.
Talking about it.
Your key never leaves the.
Sorry, means like yes, it's not key transfer. It's the signature. It's doing the signing. Yes.
And for multi-sig, you would not share your private key anyways. You would share some.
You would just sign, yes.
A public key that to then create the multi-sig configuration. Right.
Yeah. You never share your private key, no matter what.
Only with me. You can trust me. I'll take care of him.
We should have a button: donate your private keys to the developers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to say, Michael, thanks for joining. That means a lot, and also let us know if the documentation we have. We want anybody who kind of maybe wants to gloss over what we're doing, or even wants to really come in and work. Did we aggregate all the information in the correct places for them? And so it'd be great if you could let us know about that.
Cool. Yeah, I'm kind of